What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Footy with an Edge. Manchester United lost 2-0 to Newcastle at St James's Park in what was a disappointing result, but an even more disappointing performance. Newcastle barely had to get out of second gear defensively because United literally did nothing going forward. I mean, the game stats are absolutely embarrassing because Newcastle had 3.57 XG to United's 0.43. Newcastle had 22 shots with 6 on target, and United had 6 shots with just 1 on target. I want to take you guys back about 2 months to January 22nd when we played Arsenal at the Emirates, which was also a game in which Casemiro was missing due to suspension. That was arguably our toughest game of the season in terms of the quality of the opposition that we were playing, because Arsenal are the best team in the league this season. And even in that game, Arsenal created less XG than Newcastle did today. And everyone knows that this Newcastle team is nowhere near the quality of an Arsenal. Look, Ten Hag is arguably already our best coach since Sir Alex Ferguson left the club because of how quickly he's been able to make a big difference in our playstyle and to our ability to win games and so on. But as passionate fans who care about this club, we have to hold him accountable when he got everything from his selection to his formations to his tactics wrong in that game. And look, I'm not here to lose my cool over it because Ten Hag has shown us enough for me to think that he will figure this out, and hopefully we see fewer and fewer of such performances over the rest of this season and next season. But I'm here to analyze why we look so poor in that game, and at the center of that terrible performance was Scott McTominay and how Ten Hag utilized him. So let's start by talking about both teams' tactics before we get into that. As always, please drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy, and don't forget to turn on all notifications to never miss out on content just like this. So we're going to start off by talking about Newcastle in possession and United out of possession, because this is where most of the damage was done from a Manchester United perspective. Newcastle started in their usual 4-3-3 formation but played in a 3-1-3-3 in possession that looked like this. In this shape, you had Isak up top occupying our 2 center backs next to Saint-Maximin and Murphy on the wings. Behind them, you had an attacking midfield trio of Trippier, Guimaraes and Willock. Then you had Longstaff as the holding midfielder with a back 3 of Shard, Botman and Dan Burn. Now, before I talk about the movement by Newcastle's front 7 that was creating all the issues for United, I want to highlight that to everyone's surprise, Ten Hag played Scott McTominay in the number 10 and Bruno Fernandes and Sabitzer as the double pivot for the first time that I can remember in a United shirt. So I spent the 90 in-game minutes and few hours after the game thinking about why Ten Hag did this, and I have the following explanation. United have played 11 Premier League games in 2023, including the one against Newcastle. That's about 1,000 minutes of Premier League football. Scott McTominay has played exactly 303 of those minutes, with 2 starts and 5 appearances off the bench. If we drop the 1 minute that he played against Man City, we have 6 games in which we got 1 win, 2 draws and 3 losses. So going into this game, Ten Hag is thinking McTominay is absolutely crap in the double pivot, and he has just scored 4 goals as an attacking midfielder for Scotland over the international break, so let me just put him in the 10 and see what happens. And I have to be honest, when we were watching McFred under Ollie, what did we say about McTominay? He's better as an 8 because he's better going forward than he is backwards. So when I saw him in the 10, I'm thinking, is this some next level tactics from Ten Hag to get the best out of Scott McTominay? And I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I wanted to see it work, but it failed spectacularly. In fact, I can't think of 2 other players in our forward line that looked worse than McTominay and Weghorst did in that game. You probably have to go back to our 4-1 defeat to Man City under Ranić last season when Rashford and Lingard came off the bench in the 64th minute and were just walking around for 30 minutes. So let's talk about why this was a terrible idea to play Scott McTominay in the 10 and how Newcastle took advantage of it. So Newcastle's front 7 players, which is the 2 banks of 3 that you see here and the CDM, were playing very fluid positionally. You had Saint-Maximin dropping into more central areas while Willock would overlap and get onto the wing. And then you had Murphy dropping into central areas or these half spaces here, while one of Bruno Guimaraes or Kieran Trippier would overlap him on the right side. And then Guimaraes and Longstaff were taking turns playing the CDM duties, so sometimes you would see Longstaff playing centrally and also overlapping on the right hand side to create those overloads. Basically, basically, Newcastle's only goal was to create overloads in these wide areas, mostly on the right-hand side, to put crosses into the box. And they were obviously doing this more from the right-hand side because Trippier is their best creator. So this triangle of Bruno, Murphy, and Guimaraes would constantly attack Shaw, Martinez, and Sabitzer on this side with 1-2s and third man runs to get into the space behind them and put in free crosses. And they were able to do this consistently because Rashford was almost never tracking back to help these guys out. This meant that Newcastle could just flood the box with Willock, Isak, and say Maximin, and they would be 3v3 against Varane, Dalot, and Fernandes inside the box. And this is where my biggest issue comes in with playing McTominay in the 10. Because like we've seen time and time again, he's terrible defensively in terms of making himself bigger against opposition dribblers by jockeying like Casemiro does so well. And going forward, his touch and passing can be suspect because, you know, he's 6'4". He doesn't have that low center of gravity that players in the 10 usually succeed with. So his biggest and arguably only advantage is his aerial presence because, like I said, he's 6'4". And with him playing in this 10 role further forward, he would rarely be in the position that Fernandes or Sabitzer were in inside the box to defend against the crosses. So he was mostly like at the edge of the box when the crosses were coming in. And so this meant Newcastle had an absolute field day inside the box. In the first 20 minutes, Newcastle had 1.2 XG from doing just this repeatedly. The cross would come into the box, Isak or Willock or St. Maximin would get their header blocked by De Gea, and the ball would ricochet around our box like a pinball machine, while Newcastle would get 1 or 2 more shots before one of our defenders cleared the ball away. And Newcastle would win that second ball up the pitch and come back and do the same thing. That's how they got 1.2 XG in those first 20 minutes. And it wasn't just McTominay's role that Ten Hag got wrong in that game. He also got Weghorst and Rashford spectacularly wrong as well. Look, anyone that cares about Premier League football beyond just watching the games knows that Kieran Trippier has created the second most chances in the Premier League this season, just behind Kevin De Bruyne. So everything Newcastle does goes through this guy, as it did in that game. So when you know that Rashford is not the best at tracking back, or that you don't want him to track back to give more of that attacking threat on the counter-attack, why play Rashford off the left? Why not stick him through the middle like you've done in previous games and just drop Weghorst to the 10, leave McTominay on the bench, and play a Sancho or even Elanga, Palestri, anybody on the left-hand side? Because if you did play Rashford through the middle, the Newcastle defense would have been forced to stay 10 yards further back, and Rashford would be right on their tail and they would be shitting bricks because it's so difficult to track this guy's movement and his pace is so dangerous with the ball in behind. Instead, it was double jeopardy for United because Weghorst was absolutely useless in the middle. Botman and Cher were not at all worried about the ball in behind with Weghorst playing in this area, so they were holding right up the pitch in these areas here, and Rashford never got the ball enough in advanced areas to hurt them on the counterattack. So with two of our tallest players in Weghorst and McTominay missing when we were defending crosses because they were playing so further up, and Rashford not tracking back, it was essentially 7 versus 10 in Newcastle's favor whenever they attacked. And you know what the worst part is? Newcastle could have probably had 4, 5, 6, or even 7 goals in that game if they had taken their chances like Liverpool did against us. In fact, if we walk through the actual chances they had, you'll see that they were more clear-cut than the ones Liverpool scored with. Let's see. De Gea had that double save early in the first half that could have been a goal from Willock. Willock could have had a third goal from that shot he put over the bar from the right-hand side, and a fourth goal from that shot that he put wide in the 79th minute. Fabian Cher could have had a goal from outside the box in the 57th minute, and Longstaff had a shot from outside the box in the 38th minute that could have gone in as well. So on another day, it really is 5, 6, or 7-0 to Newcastle. Look, in the second half, Ten Hag did move some people around as McTominay dropped back into the double pivot while Sabitzer moved into the 10, but it wasn't enough because he should have moved Rashford through the middle, brought on Sancho off the left, and kept Anthony on the pitch, while McTominay or Weghorst were one of the ones that came off. And despite all of the frustrating negatives that we just went through, Martial was like a ray of sunshine for the 30 minutes or so that he was on the pitch. And I have a clip here that'll show you exactly what he provides that Wout Weghorst just does not. We start with Martinez picking up the ball from De Gea, and he's about to play it into Bruno, who's playing in the CDM role in the second half. As Bruno receives the ball and turns, we see 4 Newcastle players around him in these areas, which means he has to play it first time in order to avoid losing possession. And he really needs a United player to show themselves in one of these 2 areas here. And that player is Anthony Martial, of course. He has dropped deeper than both Sabitzer and McTominay into this spot to receive the ball off of Bruno, while McTominay, more so than Sabitzer on the other side, could have actually dropped into this space to receive the ball. But we all know that McTominay worries about his own first touch, and we probably as a fan base don't want to see him getting the ball in these areas either. And don't get me wrong, Wout Weghorst is more than happy to drop into this space just like Martial to pick up the ball, but his first touch just isn't as good as Martial's is, and his pace in behind isn't as good as Martial either. So Martial lays the ball off to Varane. We see that Fabian Schär is way out of position in this area as he's tracking Martial, and this means three things. 1. Schär has vacated his position in the back line, which means someone from the midfield has to go fill in his spot in the meantime, which is Bruno in this scenario. 2. This could result in a more favorable matchup for a United forward or midfielder, because that midfielder that's in the center back position is not going to be as good as the center back at defending. And 3, that midfielder who's now defending is further away from the United goal, so they can't hurt United going forward as easily. So as Varane picks up the ball and is about to play it into Dalot, we see more differences between Martial and Weghorst being on the pitch. Look at how all 4 of these Newcastle players in midfield are moving backwards to get into position. If this was Weghorst in this area, at least 2 of them could stick tight to Weghorst and Bruno and try to win the ball back high. And it's because they know that Weghorst in a position like this doesn't have a pace to beat them in behind in a pure foot race. Martial, on the other hand, is rapid, especially with the ball at his feet, and so Newcastle are giving him the space in this area to avoid getting beat in the space further up. And as Dalot gets on the ball, we see some of the things that I was talking about. Martial vacating his space from here to get into this area frees up space for both McTominay and Sabitzer to get further up the pitch. And McTominay is now being defended by Bruno Guimaraes, which is an obvious mismatch physically and in the air. And Botman is being marked by Sabitzer, who likes to shoot from outside the box, which means Botman's going to have to hold a little bit further up in order to stop those shooting angles. More than anything else, I just hope that Martial can stay fit till the end of the season, because I would love nothing more than United finishing in the top 4 and not having to worry about winning the Europa League to get Champions League football next season. What do you guys think? Did you like what you saw from Martial? Do you think he'll stay fit till the end of the season? Get in the comments with your thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.